Hello, the news from Channel 1 Ostankiно. The 1st of April, as one knows, one must be on guard, as you can expect at any time surprises from anywhere. However, during the next 25 minutes, don't be tense, the jokes will come at the end. And for now, absolutely seriously, about events which were truly important today. President Boris Yeltsin in principle supported the idea of forming the party Russia's Choice. In the second half of April, Russia will join NATO's program, Partnership for Peace, said the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kozyrev. On the Russian-Estonian border, unidentified criminals shot at a Russian border patrol. The UN Secretary-General Boutros Ghali began his 5-day visit to Moscow. In Tokyo, 2 ultra-right gunmen seized hostages in the building of the Asahi newspaper. Today, for the first time, the exact date was named for the signing by political parties of the agreement on civil accord in Russia. This information journalists received from the President Boris Yeltsin after the ceremony of bestowing congratulatory certificates to ambassadors of several countries in the Kremlin. The project is ready, and now we have sent it out to the State Duma and the Federative Council, and we're beginning to work with parties in order to agree upon some other issues. The result is a satisfactory document, I must say, this agreement on civil accord. We've planned the final signing by the basic political forces in Russia on the 28th of April. Today, Boris Yeltsin essentially began consultations with the basic political organs. Welcomed in the Kremlin, the leader of Russia's Choice, Igor Gaidar. During talks, they discussed questions of social, economic, and political circumstances in the country. First of all, the journalists were interested in the question on the attitude of the president to creating a new political party called Russia's Choice. Igor Gaidar stated that the president supported this idea. We firmly agreed that any party, apart from Russia's Choice, that is a presidential party, will not be created. That we will coordinate all of our organizational efforts, and at the same time an attempt to create, in the full sense of the word, a presidential party, Igor Gaidar called destructive and dangerous. The essence of creating a party he sees as coordinating political energies, supporting the president as a reformer. Igor Gaidar also stated that on Monday planned is the meeting of Boris Yeltsin with the representatives of the Duma faction, Russia's Choice. Today, the President of the Russian Federation, Boris Yeltsin, welcomed the Marshal of the Polish Sejm, Yusuf Alexei, who heads the parliamentary delegation of the Republic of Poland. Boris Yeltsin expressed satisfaction with the condition of parliamentary ties between the two countries and expressed himself for further development of Russian-Polish relations on a dialogue lawful basis. Yusuf Alexei noted that in various echelons of Polish society there's a desire to strengthen ties with Russia. The attitude of Russia to the NATO program, Partnership for Peace, remains unchanged. As planned earlier, Russia intends to join this program and will sign the corresponding agreement with NATO in the second half of April. This was stated today, answering a question of the Interfax correspondent, by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Kozyrev. In his opinion, the statement of the press secretary of the President, Vyacheslav Kostikov, about the fact that Boris Yeltsin has no intention to rush events and possibly 6 or 7 months will be needed for Russia to join the program for partnership was either misunderstood or not precisely formulated. 1.5 hours ago ended the dialogues of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Kozyrev, with the Secretary-General of the United Nations, Boutros Ghali, who this morning arrived in Moscow with an official 5-day visit. This is the second visit of Boutros Ghali to our country as the head of this international organization. Planned also is the meeting of Boutros Ghali with the President of Russia, the Minister of Defense, Pavel Grachev, talks with the deputies of the State Duma. On Tuesday, a meeting with the Patriarch of all Russia, Alexei II. After today's talks, Andrei Kozyrov had a meeting with the press, noted the great role of the UN and Butrusgali in resolving important international problems, and emphasized that the basic topic of the dialogues were the peacekeeping efforts of the UN in various regions of the world, and most of all in Bosnia. The Secretary-General of the UN expressed gratitude to Russia for her fruitful contribution to the deblockading of Sarajevo and Tuzla. He expressed hope that Russia, as a great country, a country which stands at the sources of the UN, will in the future also cooperate in strengthening international peace. Butrusgali stated that in connection with the imminent 50th anniversary of this international organization, one must find new possibilities and approaches for the UN's activity in the world, having been freed from restrictions of the Cold War, and the role of Russia here could be just as great. For 2 months, the special situation has been extended in Pridnestrovia from April the 1st to the 31st of May of the current year. This is said in the decree of the President of the Pridnestrov Moldavian Republic, where it notes that the special situation was extended in aims of strengthening security of the society and in the interests of defending the civil rights of the Pridnestrovian residents, also to activate the battle with organized crime in the cities and regions of the Republic, and to provide defense for the state structure. This was stated today by Tartas. The President of Azerbaijan, Gaydar Aliyev, today met with the delegation of the Interim Parliamentary Assembly of the CIS, which arrived in Baku. He positively reacted to the initiative for the Bishkek meeting in May of the heads of state of Azerbaijan and Armenia, at which the sides could discuss paths toward regularizing the Karabakh conflict. Today, the delegation of the Interparliamentary Assembly arrived in Yerevan, where it met with the members of the Presidium and the deputies of the Supreme Soviet of Armenia. The chairman of the Supreme Soviet, Babken Araksan, affirmed that in Bishkek there will be a meeting of sides involved in the conflict. In the evening, the delegation met with the president of Armenia, Levon Tarpetrosyan, and for tomorrow morning planned is its departure for Stepanakert. The Parliament of Georgia today adopted a resolution regarding yesterday's incident in its building when the now former chief of the Tbilisi police attempted, together with his cohorts, to interrupt the procedures of swearing into office of the Minister of Internal Affairs of the Republic. In the document, the actions of Major General David Zavikhidze are described as an attempt to disperse Parliament through physical aggression. And it's also stated, as a result of the clash, serious trauma was received by a member of government and an employee of the apparatus of the head of state. As Itatas reports, the Parliament took into account that in the case criminal charges have been filed and instructed the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Republic to take necessary measures to restore order in the city police department. In the zone of state of emergency are still the territories of Northern Ossetia and Ingushetia. For almost 1.5 years, normal human life has been disrupted here. This is a result of the conflict which occurred between the Ingush and Ossetian residents in October-November of 1992. Only in the town Dachne, a suburb of Northern Ossetia, of 418 houses, 2 remain. The rest are fully destroyed. 2 of the houses belong to both Ingushetians and Ossetians. The decree of the President of the Russian Federation of the 12th of December of last year provided the possibility to return to the former place of residence for refugees and forced resettlers. And how is it being complied with? It is being fulfilled unsatisfactorily. The conflict has ended. It is behind us, but unfortunately, today there are forces which don't want the stabilization of the situation. The main aim is that people should be able to return to their permanent residences. Today, the basic emphasis must be made on resolving employment issues. The people of both republics hope that the coming meeting of the presidents of Northern Ossetia and Ingushetia can be a real step towards stabilizing the situation in the state of emergency zone. The task force of experts of Northern Ossetia and Ingushetia agreed to hold Saturday a meeting of the president of Northern Ossetia, Aksarbek Galazov, and Ingushetia, Ruslan Alshov. This was told to Interfax by the head of the temporary administration in the state of emergency zone, Vladimir Lozovoy. The meeting will be in the capital of Kabardino-Balkaria, Nalchik. In the Pechorsk region of Pskovshina on the border border with Estonia, today Russian border patrol was shot at. According to TASS, which was received from competent sources, the following happened. At 3 o'clock in the morning on the 1st of April on the railway station Pichoro, 50 kilometers from Pskov, the Russian border patrol detained two men, approximately 25 and 40 years of age, violating the border from the Estonian side. The older one identified himself as Vladimir Ilyich, a veteran from Afghanistan. The younger called himself a pilot of the Pskov airport. After the border patrol informed through the chain of command of the detainees and requested transportation to take them to the outpost, one of them opened fire from a TT pistol. The head of the border patrol, Private Tsingantsov, was mortally wounded and died on the way to hospital. Two of his fellow servicemen seriously injured. Both violators again fled to Estonia. Currently, Russian and Estonia special services are in search of the criminals. Today, the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia invited the ambassador of Estonia, Kahn. The ambassador was given a letter to competent Estonian organs to take necessary measures to arrest the criminals. In Moscow, at the meeting of representatives of the labor collectives of the coal sector and interdepartmental task force on the resolving social questions headed by the Vice Premier Alexander Shukhin, 500 miners demanded an immediate meeting with the President, Boris Yeltsin. The miners are insisting that the head of state personally be a guarantor of the fulfillment of promises made to them on financing the coal sector. At the meeting, Alexander Shukhin stated that April, in order to finance the coal sector, 1,200 billion rubles have been allotted, and he assured that this money would be paid weekly in increments of 300 billion. The most lengthy session of the Supreme Soviet of Belarusia, having adopted the new constitution and more than 300 legislative acts and resolutions, completing its work, did not make a decision on the question of the monetary credit policy of the country, the main thing which will be introducing its own national currency. And still there is hope for monetary amalgamation with Russia, and therefore the main news of the 1st of April is the new minimum salary of 60,000 Belarusian rubles, and this gives no optimism to the population. By 2 times, prices on transportation have risen. Bread has become more expensive, and other products will follow. New prices on communal services will be announced. The National Bank will again have to undertake supplemental missions, which, during the course of 1 year, managed to increase the number of Belarusian zaychiks by 6 times. The Russian faceless notes will cost 10 Belarusians, and this is the direct influence of the debt for Russian gas, which are, in order to liquidate, realistically, in the opinion of financiers, is the only through the means of crediting by Belarusia. In Simferopol, the first press conference of the Vice Premier of Crimea, Yevgeny Saburov, took place. It coincided with 2 most unpleasant news items. As of the 1st of April, prices on bread have been increased and electricity will be discontinued to indebted companies. Both measures are economically justified, but already politically interpreted. Because of politics, the economic reforms in Crimea are delayed, said Saburov. And how does he see the mechanism of reform to be? First of all, this is a new system of taxation, which will allow companies to breathe. A decrease being worked on for tariff services for Crimea. Now Crimea cannot sell beyond Ukrainian borders even its own wine. And for these decrees, resolutions of the government are being prepared. All intended measures, said Saburov, do not contradict the law on the division of powers between Crimea and Ukraine, and are agreed upon by the President of Ukraine during their recent meeting in Kiev. Today at the Moscow Interbank Currency Exchange, the rate of the American dollar again rose. It is at the level of 1,761 rubles for a dollar, which is 8 rubles higher than the indicator in the last trade. In China, as of the beginning of April, the circulation began of freely convertible national currencies called yuan. The Chinese, the first on earth, began using hard bones and metals as a universal tender. 1,000 years later, the socialist Chinese intend to return their national currency, the yuan, this universality, in order to make it convertible. As the beginning of the year, banned from circulation were the currency comparables of the yuan, with the help of which local firms avoided sharp corners of mutual accounts with foreign partners. National money immediately fell by 1.5 times in relation to the dollar, but the situation has stabilized, and now the government is attempting to change the entire currency currency system in the country. As of April, the yuan will be allowed to float freely, and its rate in relation to the dollar will be defined in relation to supply and demand in the interbank currency market. According to the Vice President of the National Bank of China, Zhou Jiantin, the change to free conversion is impossible without stable developments in the economy. Therefore, the current year, the central bank will take control over the issue of credit, and the budget deficit, so as not to increase inflation, will be covered through the issue of valuable papers. Chinese wisdom says, in crossing the river, feel for rocks. On the path to the new quality national currency of China, these insurable rocks are currency reserves, which during reform years were accumulated. Therefore, large jumps in the rate of the currency experts don't expect, although they say the unexpected is possible. According to their assessments, to become equal to the American dollar, the Japanese yen, and the English pound, Chinese national currency will be able to line up in 6 years, near the year 2000. Operational measures on warning of repercussions expected by the spring flooding in the Novgorod district were defined in today's resolution of the head of the local administration. In April and May, on the territory of the district of the city of Novgorod, expected to form is an unusually severe rise in water level. The last great flood, which brought the Novgorodians great material damage, happened in 1966. In other border regions, local authorities in countering the disaster are combining efforts with adjacent countries, and therefore the environmental services of Lithuania and Kaliningrad concluded a convention on joint actions on the ecological defense of the environment in the area of the Kursk Gulf. The grandiose flood on the Neman River covered thousands of acres of plowlands, both from the Kaliningrad and Lithuanian sides. In the former eastern Prussia, on these lands, which lie below sea level, was a drainage system in force, and surplus was dumped into the Kursk Gulf. And the system deteriorated during the last years, and therefore the snow thaw threatens to become a natural disaster. One must also add full disregard for ecology. Flooding erodes water tables and the remaining minerals and fertilizers on the fields, and the accumulations of winter fodders which were applied, and also sulfuric chloride wastes from pulp and paper mills on the banks of the river. In this situation, ecological control is lost, as stated by the just formed on the alarm, the Social Ecological Committee. And what about the State Committee on Ecology? We are simply insufficient in manpower. We're doing everything possible. And now we clearly can see that we just cannot keep up with the events, with the violations. Ecology is an international phenomenon, and they were our soldiers, at the request of Lithuanians recently, blew up ice floats on the Neman River. And it would be good in our country also, everyone together, to defend nature. In the Moscow metro, again today, there was an alarming occurrence. And this time, not technology nor the negligence of engineers was at fault, as during yesterday's accident on the Sirpokhovskaya line. At 7 o'clock in the morning at the Dynamo station, a man threw himself in the course of the approaching train. It was impossible to save him. His identity was not established, as he carried no documents. He was around 45. In the meantime, on the facts of the accident on the Moscow Metropolitan on the 30th and 31st of March, the Moscow Transportation Prosecutor has laid 3 criminal charges according to the 85th statute of the Criminal Code: violation of safety rules and operation of transportation. Depending on the severity and the repercussions of the violation, the statute provides for penalty of incarceration from 1 to 15 years. The coming piloted flight to the station Mir will be the Russian-Kazakhstan expedition. The launch on the ship Soyuz TM-19 is scheduled for the 20th of June. This was stated today at a press conference by the General Director of the Russian Space Agency, Yuri Koptev. The situation at Baikonur is known to everyone now. We filmed these shots in summer, fall and winter. Russia has an agreement on space with 22 countries, but only resolved the Baikonur issue now. $115 million Russia pays to Kazakhstan for the use of Baikonur, and it is worth it according to the aims. Communications, questions of perspective systems of meteorology, systems of television broadcastings, warning systems for missile attacks, our navigational system, which is being developed during the last several years, the program of launchings of large modules and base blocks for structure piloting and perspectives of development, the realization of the program of fundamental research of planets of the solar system, resolving major problems in astrophysics. Russia, through this launching pad, solves its national problems, just as defense, just as civil ones. To resolve many of these problems, by the year 2001 must launch around 100 rockets of the Proton system, and this can be done only from Baikonur. And one more question was clarified today by Yuri Nikolaevich Koptev. The Eastern launching pad, which appeared and was published in newspapers, dismantled with the 64th Rocket Division. 60 rocket mines were blown up, but one can use the town, the infrastructure, and then what does one do with the people who work there? Not only soldiers and officers, there were doctors there and teachers. I can officially state that no decision by the Russian government on the construction of the Eastern launching pad exists. There is a decision of government to study this question, to conduct technical and economic studies, which are planned for 1994. And during that year, all these assessments are to be completed. On the second day of his official visit of the chairman of the government of Russia, Viktor Chernomyrdin, to Hungary, began with the visit to the plant Ikarus, where concrete conversations took place with the directors of the plant on the paths to stabilize its activity in consideration of the interests and demands of Russia. Since Russia now has more than 30% of the capital investment in the company, the dignified guest inspected several new models of buses and also those created on the basis of developments of the ZIL plant. Today was the signing of a series of documents and intergovernmental agreements, among which was an agreement on trade economic cooperation and the volume of goods exchange for 1994. The UN Defense Council called North Korea to allow Mokote to complete the nuclear inspections. The issuing of this statement by the Defense Council caused an intense straining of the situation on the Korean peninsula. Today, the Defense Council resolved to extend its military operation in former Yugoslavia until the 30th of September and send an additional 3,500 military servicemen there. Thursday, late in the evening, in the French Center of Nuclear Experiments in Kadarache, during the tank cleaning operation, there was an explosion which occurred. 4 employees were injured. According to the representatives of the directors, there is no danger of radiation contamination which arose. Experts qualified this accident as an incident of the second degree on the French 6-point scale, which corresponds to the second degree of the international scale, which France will adopt as of the 4th of April. Without blood or casualties, ended in Tokyo today the armed attack of right extremists on the publishing house of one of the largest Japanese newspapers, Asahi. Holed in the lobby on the 15th floor of the building, 2 terrorists of the ultra-right group were arrested by city police, and 2 hostages seized by the bandits were freed alive and unharmed. Not one day passes in Algeria without blood of innocent victims of Islamic fundamentalists, doctors, journalists, cultural activists. Many tens and hundreds fell during the last months as a result of bloody attacks. The number of foreigners living and working in Algeria also grows, killed by terrorists of the so-called Islamic armed group. France has no means to apply pressure in order to prevent the further escalation in Algeria of this fanatic hunt for foreigners, the overwhelming majority of which are French. All scenarios of further developments of the events in the country are marked with pessimism. The spiral of violence and terrorism unwound by the armed fundamentalists each day unwinds in Algeria with greater force. The President, Zouroual, since the end of January when he stepped into office, has not yet been able to normalize the situation. His attempts to begin dialogue with opposition apparently were fruitless, and authorities on locations relinquish more of their positions under the pressure of Islamic gunmen. In the capital, a large demonstration against the terror of the fundamentalists showed that not everyone in Algiers has been brought to their knees in front of them, but that can they, rejecting the current regime and the warring Islamic groups, resist the further decline of the country to a full-scale civil war? This is the question. The reasons for the crash of the Aerobus A310 in the Temirova area on the 22nd of March, as a result of which 75 people died, possibly was human error in navigation. As the agency France Press reports today, the television company TF1 showed an interview with an unnamed Russian specialist who confirmed that he has tapes has access to the tapes of the crew members, that in the pilot's seat there before the crash there was someone else, possibly the son of the pilot. Navigating the plane on his father's instructions, he made a mistake, launching the Aerobus into a spiral formation flight, which turned out to be deadly. The general director of the aviation company Aviation Line of Russia, Valery Zuzany, said that the interview was a gross falsification. Today, nevertheless, in France, work is being completed on the deciphering of the black box tapes. Tomorrow, Itatas reports the participating Russian delegation will return to Moscow. Therefore, the conclusions of the commission will be soon forthcoming. But two-story trolleybuses in the near future will arrive to Moscow streets. The mayor of the capital has given instructions to hold talks with foreign and domestic firms to build such trolleybuses, especially for Moscow. In the event of success of the two-story trolleybuses, Moscow streets will see three-story vehicles. This was a joke from Itatas. One cannot imagine the Czech Republic without beer, just as Prague without the famous tavern Kalich, where the brave soldier Švejka sat and drank with his friends. Here the amber drink was brewed in the 15th century, and it is not by accident in this country each year a grandiose beer festival is held. Beer is God's gift. It is part of the national and historical culture, our way of life, say with full knowledge of the matter leaders of the Czech Party of Friends of Beer. It was created immediately after the Velvet Revolution of 1989. Exactly 1 year ago, on the 1st of April, it was officially re-registered. This is not an April Fool's joke, just a coincidence. The aims of the program of the party is to support democracy in defense of Czech beer and beer brewing plants from sale to Western countries, and care for the culture of consumption, etc. The main demise is to wish well for the country and abroad, says the chairman of the party, Ivan Dutschik. The membership of the party is almost 9,000 people, and it has also international contacts, including fellow thinkers in Russia. It would seem to be a political party, therefore you must be fighting for power. No. Such ambitions the Friends of Beer do not have. At the last parliamentary elections they did not pass, but at those which are coming up this year, the communal elections, we hope to have candidates in the regional and city assemblies. One can only wish them success. Our domestic partakers, incidentally, will keep 100 points ahead of their foreign counterparts. A sensational product has been invented, which will be worthy competition for Mars, Snickers and Twixes, which have flooded our market, is hard vodka, which one does not drink, but chew. 1 bar of hard vodka, says Itatas, is equivalent in effect to 1 glass of the liquid product. And now it's time to go to Odessa. In the center of attention of the current 1st of April festivals, as always, is Mikhail Zhovanevsky, and not only of this Hungarian brew, but in his, so to speak, natural form. Mikhail Mikhailovich was a great success today. He spoke with journalists and with great pleasure opened in the Literary Museum an exhibit by his own name. And the rest of Odessa was not behind her idol. Each enjoyed himself as he could. Creative fantasy was not restricted this time. And everything also celebrating were the party of beer drinkers who gathered to their friends and beer drinkers for an event, and where the attention of guests was divided between the paintings of Odessa painters and the mugs of frothing brew. Odessa's birthday, this year is the 200th anniversary of the city, became a national festival, which in the working calendar only was an official day, and time perhaps has come to change that. Unfortunately, I have no more time for jokes, but the April 1st theme will be continued by Anatoly Malyavin. All the best.
Став владельцем международной пластиковой карточки Incombank Visa, вы приобщитесь к системе банковских услуг, принятой во всем мире. Инкомбанк Виза – это ваш банк в кармане. Инкомбанк.
Возрождая будущее. Банк «Российский кредит». В отличие от любой другой ценной бумаги, акции АО МММ абсолютно ликвидны. То есть вы можете свободно продать их в любом пункте распространения акций АО МММ, причем по цене значительно выше той, которую вы за нее платили. Никаких ограничений по срокам покупки и по количеству акций не предусматривается.
Игорь и Юля, неужели опять спорят? Послушаем, о чем они говорят.
Надо, купим на всем.
Надо, Игорь, надо. АО МММ. Марина Сергеевна, здравствуйте. Куда же вы так спешите?
Проверили еще раз. Положу теперь 300 тысяч.
Поверила. АО МММ.
Let the moment stop, especially the victorious moment. The famous Moscow racer Alexander Balashov is the new world champion in the motor ice racing. We've already told you about this in the news program. Last season, our racers had won the championship of the world. Good evening. These events are very pleasant for us, but unfortunately, we're overshadowed by the Olympic Games in Lillehammer. But on the fastest ice of the world, the Olympic Hammer, celebrations were held to honor our champions of the world last Sunday. The Central Motor Group of Russia can be proud of its students, and the president of the Federation of Motorsport, Oleg Yarovoy, told us that the deserving sportsmen of Russia will be joined in numbers by Alexander Balashov, Moskva, Vladimir Fadeev, and Valery Ivanov from Krasnoyarsk, and our congratulations too. And the last chords of winter sports. Small and quick South Koreans in England at the World Championships won 2 gold medals. Of course, they have the important qualities. And they're also in England. The Masters of Table Tennis played the European Championships, and the championship went to the French, who in the finals beat the Swedes. The Russian tennis player Alexander Volkov held the 4th victory in the courts of Johannesburg on the courts of Estoril in Portugal, successfully playing as the Kievan Andrei Medvedev. He also won the 4th match in a row. African soccer in the match of 2 representatives, Cameroon and Nigeria. These days, the African Championship is being held in Tunisia. The English team beat the African continent team, Côte d'Ivoire, 1-0, but both teams are in the quarterfinals, also as the team of Guyana, which, with a 1-0 score, beat the Senegal team. The Olympic champions from Seoul, Irina Shilova, Tatiana Lidovskaya, 6-time champion of Barcelona, Vitaly Sherba, 6-time world champion, Igor Zhelizovsky. This is not the full list of athletes attacked by thieves. And another one, as Tartas Sports reports, the Olympic champion in gymnastics, Marina Lovic. And unfortunately, this is not an April Fool's joke. The International Hockey League in the quarter-final, Spartak under Lada 0-6. The Army of Petersburg beat Salavat Yulaev 6-4, Torpedo Yaroslav Tractor 0-2, Itil Moscow Dynamo 2-3. Response matches will define the semi-finals.
Внимание! Гермес Финанс принимает от населения денежные вклады с гарантированным дивидендом до 500% годовых в рублях, до 35% годовых в валюте. Внимание! Гермес Финанс – это нефтяные контракты, это жилищное строительство в Москве и Подмосковье, это ваш шанс защитить свои деньги от инфляции и, возможно, стать владельцем московской квартиры. Наши телефоны 095 314 41 09, 343 0095, 470 18 27.
Мы сильны вашим доверием.
Совет директоров чекового инвестиционного фонда МММ Инвест сообщает,
что все ставшие акционерами фонда до 20 апреля 1994 года будут иметь право на получение дивиденда в этом году, а также примут участие в очередном розыгрыше лотереи МММ Инвест. Акции фонда вы можете приобрести за ваучеры и рубли во всех почтовых отделениях России.
Good evening. The anticyclone, which is formed over the northern Ural area, will influence the weather of the Republic of Komi and the Nenetsk Autonomous District. Here it will be clear but cold. The temperatures at night -20, 25, during the day -15. In the west of the Republic of Komi, in the Kolsk Peninsula, Karelia, Arkhangelsk, and Leningrad districts, in central and Volgovyatsk regions will be in a zone of atmospheric fronts, which will shift here from the west. Therefore, here it will be cloudy with some precipitation. The temperature at night around 0, during the day +1, +6. In the northwest regions and in the Baltic countries, the weather will improve. Precipitation will decrease, and in the afternoon it will be sunny. The temperature will warm up to +3, +8. In the zone of atmospheric fronts will be central Chernozem areas, the majority of Ukrainian territory, and Belarusia. Here it will be cloudy with precipitation, in places fog. Temperatures at night from 0 to +6, during the day +5, +10. In Moldova and in the south of Ukraine, at night it will be +3, +8, during the day +15, +20. In the area of high pressure will remain the Rostov area, the Krasnodar area, Stavropolia, and the Black Sea coast of the Caucasus. Here expected is intermittent cloudiness without precipitation. The temperature at night -1, +4, during the day +12, +17. On the lower Volga area, without much precipitation and cooler, during the night 0, -5, during the day +2, +7, in some places fog. Beyond the Caucasus, it will remain partly cloudy, and in places there will be rain. The temperature at night +1, +6, during the day +10, +15. In Petersburg tomorrow, it will be cloudy, with some precipitation. The winds from the south 5 to 10 meters per second. The temperature at night 0, during the day +3, +5. In Moscow, also cloudy, and some precipitation. The winds from the south 5 to 10 meters per second. The temperature at night 0, during the day +4, +6. Information about the weather from the Oceanic Meteorological Center of Russia. All the best.
Теперь в любом почтовом отделении России вы можете купить акции OB Дипломат. Все почтовые отделения России. Наш уставный фонд 100 миллиардов рублей. Купи себе немного OB.